Until now, we're loading the different users here in our header by having two different links where I hard code the user ID. That's not very realistic. It would be more realistic to have like a list of users we can choose from and click them. And I also get these extra components we haven't used yet. Turns out in the user start component, I do have such a list. So now time to change this and use this list instead. So I will remove the second link in my header here and go back to just /user here. If I click on user, and for that I will also adjust my user route to just be /user here, or just use that as a path again, so that my user component now gets loaded. I also will remove all that content except for the navigate to home button, but no worries, we'll soon start working with parameters again. I just want this to work fine again, like this. And now I want to implement some child routes, some nested routes. Because all the other user components, start, edit, and detail, should be nested inside the user component. They all belong to the user feature, so they certainly should not be nested inside the home component or anything like that. Instead, I now want to have subroutes in my user component so that we can load different components inside there. Well, to do this, I need to configure my subroutes here. And I can do this by adding a new property to the route which should have some nested routes. It's called children. And this is again an array of routes which will now be nested after or inside of this root route, so inside /user. Therefore, in there we again specify a couple of JavaScript objects where each has a path. And the important thing is, if you now have a path which starts with a slash, this will again be appended directly after your domain. So example.com/ whatever you type here. If you leave away the slash though, it will be appended to this path, so the path of your parent route. So choose whatever you want. You can technically nest them with the path starting after your domain, or you can nest them technically and logically by also having your path reflect the nesting. But you don't need to do that. Maybe you have a use case where they should be nested technically in the component, in the user component, but that shouldn't be reflected in the path. Here I will choose the approach where I will append them to /user. So here I want to load an empty path actually, so just /user, to load my user start component, which of course I need to import. So that will be user start. And I can already import user detail, user detail and user added just like that, user added. And then here I'll use user start, but then I will have two other routes. The first one shall load a specific ID, and the second one also uses the ID, but then loads the added page. I'm not nesting this in the user detail component here because I don't want to load it on the same page as user detail. So here I now have my three subcomponents to my user component. Now, of course, we also need a place to load them because they won't be loaded in our router view here in the app.view file, because that is our root router, but now we got nested routes. So we have to set up a new router view in our user view file. So here I will simply add a new horizontal line to differentiate that and then have router view there. And now this will allow me to load this router view or to load the subroutes. We can already see this. If I reload this, we see the user start component is selected by default because I set it up to have an empty path after /user, which is where I'm at right now. And if I were to enter 1 here, we see the user details page. Of course, the 1 is not extracted right now, but we see this works. So with that, we now improve this. Now I want to make these list items here clickable to actually load another nested component, namely the detail component, let's say.